Welcome, age of vintage society. No starlet in Hollywood fell quite as far as Betty Hutton. After losing her family and career, Hutton was found homeless and alone on the streets, struggling to find a place to sleep for the night. This blonde bombshell was a mere echo of the beauty she used to be, and yet her greatest tragedy was by far her devastating end. Why Betty Hutton's emotional state began to deteriorate. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Known as one of the most versatile and energetic entertainers of all time, Betty Hutton has been a band singer, performed on and off Broadway, in motion pictures, on stage and in nightclubs. Her acting range has proven her capable of both comedic and dramatic roles, in addition to the expected musical ones. There are plenty of female stars from Hollywood's golden age who can be given top rankings for being superb beauties and memorable actresses, but there were only a few great entertainers who were in the same league with Betty Hutton. Betty had a dynamic energy that transferred well onto stage and screen, and did much to calm and entertain war-weary audiences during the 1940s. Betty is well remembered today for her assertive and humorous novelty tunes that showcased her explosive energy. Still, her film roles endure as her most permanent legacy. Because of her high spirits, she became known as the Blonde Bombshell. Her reign at the top of the film world was a brief 11 years. During that time, she made 20 major feature films. At her peak, she was viewed as a national treasure, one of the most beloved stars and biggest box office attractions on the silver screen. Moviegoers in 1950 named her the year's best actress in a Photoplay magazine poll. Variety even named her 1952's #1 female box office attraction. Yet 1 year later, her career in film was all but over. Due to a dispute with studio bosses over not allowing her second husband to direct her next film, Betty and Paramount abruptly ended their long and extremely prosperous relationship. Hutton continued to work in radio, appeared several times a year in Las Vegas nightclubs, and eventually tried her luck on the new medium of television. Still, her career never regained its momentum. An underrated actress and comedienne from the 1940s wartime era, Betty Hutton was the younger sibling of Marion Hutton, longtime girl singer with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. A remarkably elastic performer with a powerful range, Hutton's vocal work was augmented by its comedic aspects. Although she was capable of crooning ballads and love songs every bit as sweetly as her big sister, she often yonked and squawked her way through songs, and was a superior on-stage performer. Her amazing dexterity in veering from comedy to straight singing, changing direction in a heartbeat, made Hutton's musical work even more impressive. Tunes like I'm Just a Square in a Social Circle and Can't Stop Talking About Him are impressive just for their swinging, tongue-twisty dynamics. This, along with her facial mugging and easygoing physicality, made her unique among female performers of her time, sort of like Martha Ray without as much sexist baggage. Hutton's legacy has been obscured over the years, in part due to the hard life she led. Elizabeth June Thornburg, better known later as Betty Hutton, was born in Michigan in the winter of 1921. She had a hard life right from the get-go. When she was only 2 years old, her dad abandoned the family. Devastated, her alcoholic mum struggled to make ends meet for her 2 little daughters, and eventually decided to move to Detroit. Raised by her mother in an illegal Prohibition-era saloon in Battle Creek, Hutton made her show business debut singing for the customers. By the time she was a teenager, she was performing in small-time vaudeville in the Detroit area. Hutton's mother quickly dropped her odd jobs when she realized she had a great talent on her hands. Both her daughters could carry a tune. As such, she decided to start a business selling the product she coveted the most, drink with a side of music. The Hutton sisters entered into show business out of necessity. Little Barbara Hutton sang her heart out for any groups that would listen and pay to hear her. Forced into the spotlight at such a young age, Hutton had no choice but to become fearless, and her determination took her to some of the toughest stages of her life. Hutton's undeniable talent couldn't confine her to the local bar. She was always destined for something bigger. but her road to fame was anything but easy. "When I mentioned that I wanted to be a star, my mother thought I was nuts," Hutton recalled. "I thought if I became a star and got us out of poverty, she would quit drinking. I didn't know alcoholism was a disease. Nobody did. There was no AA then." Eager to branch out, she tried a hand at Broadway, but sadly it ended in disappointment. Still, Hutton wasn't about to give up just yet. When she returned to Detroit, her luck changed for the better. Her most successful venture was as a bootlegger, running several speakeasies during the Prohibition era. The sisters discovered their flair for performing when they began to sing for the customers who came to their mom's bar. Later they were hired by sweet band leader Vincent Lopez to sing in his orchestra in the late 30s. She was only 14 years old and earning $65 a week. With a standout personality like Hutton's, it wasn't long before she carved out a niche for herself. Marion Hutton was hired away by Glenn Miller, becoming one of his top singers before Miller joined the Air Force and was lost at sea in 1944. After a fling with RCA, Betty Hutton was signed as one of the first stars on Johnny Mercer's fledgling Capitol label, and became an important early interpreter of his and Frank Loesser's work. She left Capitol at the end of the 40s, having become frustrated that the songs she was pitched tended to be strictly comedic material, often tied to her film performances at Paramount. At 18 she was in a Broadway revue, 2 for the show, and then newcomers Eve Arden, Alfred Drake, Richard Haydn, Tommy Wonder and Keenan Wynn, followed by the Broadway version of Panama Hattie, before getting her start in Hollywood. Hutton became known as America's #1 jitterbug because of her hilarious and eccentric way of singing. Her whoop and holler style made her famous and helped her find an entry into show business. Warner Brothers hired her for some musical shorts like 1938's Queen of the Air. However, all's fair in love and war, or in this case musical theatre, and not everyone was happy about Hutton's success. Hutton's second Broadway musical was Panama Hattie, starring Ethel Merman. The play did incredibly well, and Hutton was such a huge hit that it ran for a whopping 501 performances. But while the audience loved her rambunctious style and melodic voice, Merman was not a fan. In a fit of envy, she demanded that the producer slash Hutton's songs and stage time. Luckily for Hutton, she had one very special person in her corner. She became a protégé of Buddy DeSilva, a famed songwriter then working for Paramount. This signalled the beginning of a new life for Hutton. But would her films do as well as her stage performances? He gave her a role in his Broadway musical Panama Hattie. She sang fresh as a daisy, "They Ain't Doing Right by Our Nell," and "All I Gotta Get Is My Man." The chorus included such singing greats as Lucille Bremer, Janice Carter and Vera Ellen. When DeSilva took over Paramount in 1941, Hutton's career only flourished more. She performed in 14 films in 11 years, including Happy Go Lucky, Annie Get Your Gun with Howard Keel, Let's Dance with Fred Astaire, and The Miracle of Morgan's Creek. Hutton's first film with Paramount was as a supporting actor in The Fleet's Inn, released in 1942. Her signature singing style captivated the audience, and she was immediately a hit. She signed up for 3 other light-hearted musicals, progressing up the cast list in each appearance. After putting in the work, she got her first taste of real fame. One of the earliest highlights of Hutton's career was when she shared the billing with Bob Hope in her third film, Let's Face It. And let's face it, her hard work was definitely paying off. After coming from nothing, Hutton's new income put her poverty firmly behind her. She was reportedly making over $1,000 a week. However, she wasn't out of the woods yet. She made a name for herself, but now she had to sustain it. Her biggest success came with the MGM musical Annie Get Your Gun, for which she replaced Judy Garland in the lead role. "Frankly, I knew a lot of people didn't want me to play Annie," Hutton remarked, knowing she had gained a reputation for being too egotistic. Her co-star Howard Keel admitted finding her too impetuous and demanding, but Betty gave one of her best ever screen performances as the sharpshooting girl who realised she can't get a man with a gun. But years later, Hutton said, "It was the heartbreak of my life." She said the cast and crew were terrible to her. MGM did not even invite her to the opening night in New York. She returned to Paramount with Let's Dance opposite Fred Astaire. Her rough comedy clashed with Astaire's smooth sophistication, but Fred said, "Working with Betty Hutton keeps anybody moving. She's so talented and conscientious that if you don't watch yourself you feel you're standing still and letting her do all the work." Hutton then played the trapeze artist in Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth, torn between fellow artiste Cornel Wilde and circus manager Charlton Heston. Hutton's over-the-top singing style had its roots in her personality. She was naturally hyperactive, and this made her very popular with her co-stars on set. Marie Windsor, who acted with her in Let's Face It, recalled that everyone loved Hutton's enthusiasm, but in retrospect she realised that Hutton was probably very tense all the time. Perhaps she felt this was what the audience wanted, but deep down Hutton wanted to try something new. No one wants to be a one-trick pony, and Hutton was no different. She wanted to show audiences that she could do a lot more than just sing and dance. That said, she landed the role of a naive small-town girl in The Miracle of Morgan's Creek, a comedy by prolific writer-director Preston Sturges. There was a lot riding on this risk, but in the end she pulled it off. With this role, Hutton proved that she could really act. The Miracle of Morgan Creek ended up being a game-changer for Hutton. One review in the Herald Tribune applauded her change from bumptious hoyden to sweet and amusing comic actress. It received several nominations for acting and direction, and the National Board of Review presented her with the award for Best Acting. The girl was on fire, and she knew it. Hutton's subsequent films with Paramount did extremely well at the box office too. With the ball in her court, Hutton grabbed every opportunity and ran with it. This led her to a brand new adventure when she signed up with Capitol Records, being one of the first artists to do so. She recorded several songs for them, sang for the radio, and even performed as a variety show host on air. She left Paramount shortly afterwards when the studio refused her demand that her second husband, choreographer Charles O'Curran, direct all her movies. She left Hollywood and films to perform on Broadway, in concerts and nightclubs, and to record her works. She made only one more film, Spring Reunion, in which she was more subdued than her usual raucous self. In 1967, Hutton was signed to star in Red Tomahawk, a low-budget Paramount Western with her Annie Get-Your-Gun screen partner, Keel. But soon after starting work she was fired and replaced by Joan Caulfield. After that her emotional state began to deteriorate. Her fourth marriage ended, Hutton's life turned to despair as her mother passed away and she declared bankruptcy. Her personal life was rocky at times, including 4 failed marriages and a 20-year-old addiction to pills. There followed years of drug abuse and alcoholism. A falling out with her children and a suicide attempt eventually resulted in a nervous breakdown. In an interview at the time she said, "I'm so mixed up and blue, I just can't take any more setbacks. I don't even have many friends anymore because I backed away from them. I think things are going to go right for me again. I'm not old. I'm old enough, but I photograph young, thank God, and I still get fan mail. I don't know where it's all going to lead." Her career and life spiralled. She was addicted to drugs, penniless and homeless. By chance, in the early 1970s, she met Father Peter Maguire. He guided and counselled her for 5 years, saving her life. Father Maguire, regarded as pretty much a saint by all who knew him, ended up being the father that Betty Hutton never knew, the one who deserted her at the age of 2 in Battle Creek. With his help, she regained her strength and began working as a rectory cook and housekeeper, leaving only once in 5 years to undergo treatment in a mental hospital. Maguire helped her a lot, getting her life back in order. Hutton decided to pursue an education in 1974. She attended Salve Regina University and earned a bachelor's degree. Shortly after, she earned her master's degree and was awarded an honorary PhD. With her newfound zest for life, she began teaching, acting and singing classes at the university. In the 1980s, she worked as a hostess at a Connecticut sports centre, where she still displayed remnants of the bouncy personality that had cheered up filmgoers in dark times. Once Father Maguire died in 1997, she retired and lived quietly in Palm Springs until she passed away on March 11, 2007, at the age of 86. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Betty Hutton? She was nicknamed the Blonde Bombshell because of her extreme energy on stage and screen.